There is little left of Alloa Harbour, but it was once a bustling river port with ships trading with Scandinavia and the Low Countries. The first mention of a port was in 1502, when James IV paid for a ship full of cargo to go to Alloa Pow, or Stream. It was mentioned again in 1558 as a cargo of coal was being transported from Alloa to Inchkeith, an island in the Firth of Forth. Less than 20 years later, trade in contraband and goods difficult to sell took place at the Pow, but it wasn't until 1655 that there is a reference to a herbery or harbour at Alloa, with John Erskine, 2nd Earl of Mar, having been granted privileges of the port more than 30 years earlier. In the 18th century, John Erskine, 6th Earl of Mar, was granted permission for Alloa to have a customs house, which was built in 1710, to oversee all the ports in the Upper Forth. Until then, it had come under the auspices of Boroughston-Ness, Bo'ness, and in 1713 a port was established, albeit a member of the Port of Bo'ness. With the revenue gained, the pier was rebuilt and other works were carried out in 1754, the same year the Alloa Harbour Trust was incorporated. In 1756, the quay wall was raised just over 30 centimetres or a foot above the high tide mark. Further quays were added in 1757 and 1761, with the latter linking the other two, and in 1790 the dry dock was built, with a wet dock following in 1863. Renowned local artist David Allen sketched the dry dock in 1791. He was fascinated by it, as his father had been appointed harbour master by Thomas Erskine, and the young David had spent much of his childhood watching the activity there. This was a boom time for Alloa, with over 100 ships registered there. These ships traded local coal and salt to Scandinavia and the Low Countries, and brought back grain for the local breweries and sand for the Alloa glassworks. At the Dutch port of Camp Vere, Scottish vessels, including those from Alloa, weren't charged at the Scotch gate, while other shipping still had to pay their fees. It was a sign of respect between these traders. In 1766, the Alloa Wagonway was established between the collieries and the harbour, as it was the only way to transport the coal such a distance to the boats. It was single track, with several passing loops, with the wagons pulled by horses. In 1815, the port became independent, which lasted nearly 80 years, until the trustees sold it to North British Rail, then to the North British Transport Company. During the latter 19th century, it continued to thrive, with many ships having to wait for berths, although trading tailed off during the winter months, and the ships were tied up until spring. Throughout this time, Alloa never had any tug steamboats of its own to tow vessels to Alloa from Grangemouth, which did have them, although there were other steam tugs that frequented the port, making them available to assist shipping at all times. There were no fixed charges relating to this service, as it was an agreed sum, following the brokering of a deal between the ship's master and the pilot. Charges ranged in the 1840s between £1 1 shilling to £2 2 shillings for pilotage between Leith and Alloa, for example, around 30 miles, depending on the size of the vessel and the season of the year. Ballast was made available from 5p to 7p per tonne, but due to coal being loaded at the dock, it was rarely ever required, and for each tide or day's work on the quay, the charge was 2s 6p and 3s 6p. Harbour dues for all shipping at Alloa was 3 farthings per registered tonne, with the shore dues on goods being moderate and regulated by terms in an Act of Parliament. Other information given to shipping was the depth of the water at the harbour. This ranged from 3.6 metres to 4.2 metres, 12 to 14 feet at neap tides, lower than average, and 5.4 metres to 6.1 metres, 18 to 20 feet at spring ones, higher than average. The coming of World War I in 1914 led to a chain of events that saw the demise of the port. No longer were ships allowed up the River Forth, so alternative ways were found to transport goods, such as road and rail. This led to the closure of the wagonway in 1924. The opening of the Kincardine Bridge in 1936 also had an impact, with ships docking at Grangemouth, then goods transported by road more quickly to the factories and businesses in Alloa. There was a minor boost to the port during World War II, when several ships were refitted and Mulberry harbours were manufactured at the site. But the decline continued after the war. Even with upgrading and modernisation, it couldn't compete with Grangemouth, and in 1951 the harbour was infilled. The port finally closed in the 1960s. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.